Hi there. Welcome to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. When I'm out thrifting, I'm always on the lookout for things that I can repurpose from season to season, like glass jars and vases, candlesticks, crates and boxes, frames and trays. I don't decorate a lot seasonally, but I like to use the same decor items and just repurpose them. For my first project, I'm going to take this $7 birdcage that is a really shiny metallic silver. I'm going to give it a couple of coats of Rust-Oleum paint and primer in one in the color satin white. I'm crumpling up some book pages and I'm just going to toss those in the very bottom. And that is just going to give me some texture and look a little bit vintage and old. Next, I'm going to be adding some lamb's ear sprigs, and I'm just going to place them throughout the bottom. I'm going to have some of them sticking out and some of them at the back a little higher than in the front. And it just is something that you do until it looks good to you. I found this chunky bird at the Dollar Tree, and to give him some height, I'm just going to glue it onto a little wood stump that I have in my stash. And just hot glue will be enough to secure this because, again, I'm probably going to repurpose this whole project for something different later on. I'm going to set him in on one side of the birdcage and I'm just going to kind of shuffle around the papers until it hits the bottom. I'm not even going to glue this in place. It's just going to stand really sturdy on its own. I'm going to use this green pumpkin for a subtle hint of fall in the birdcage. This is one of my favorites. I think I picked up an assorted bag of these at Michael's a few years back, and I've just been using this guy ever since. Now I'm going to add some little sprigs of boxwood, and this is going to give this a little bit more color, a little bit more texture, and just add some visual interest. Here you can see that I moved the pumpkin towards the back a little bit because there's something else I want to add in the front. I love using solo wood flowers for the fall season. Their creamy color just works really well with all the muted colors and tones of the fall season. So I'm going to take a few of them and just place them around the birdcage, giving it a little bit more of a floral touch. The last thing I added was a white chunky candle right in the front, and this is how it turned out. I found this urn at a thrift store. I paid $5 for it, and it is gorgeous, just the way it is. I don't mind the shine of it. I love all the pattern on it, and it's beautiful. So, what I'm going to do is just make something to put in it for the fall season. Since I don't want anything permanent in here, I'm just stuffing it with some pieces of pool noodle. And next, I'm going to show you how I'm going to secure them in so they don't wiggle around. I'm going to create my own floral pins using some lengths of wire. I don't know what gauge of wire this is, but it is fairly thick. It's really easy to bend, but it's still very sturdy. So I'm going to put them into a U shape and then just poke them into the pool noodle, and that will hold all of these pieces together. I'm using some of this eucalyptus greenery that I picked up from Michael's a while ago, and I'm just going to be creating my own little wreath here. I don't have a candle ring or anything like that hanging around, but that would be a perfect thing to use as well. So I'm just taking a length of wire from the stems themselves and I'm gluing different pieces onto it. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of different greenery, a little boxwood you can see on the right hand side there, and that will just add some texture and color. I'm going to take one of these Dollar Tree pumpkins that I had in my stash from last year and just cut out the top and the bottom so there's a hole. Since burlap is a fairly see-through product, I'm going to make sure that you don't see any of the orange coming through. So I'm painting it with my favorite color of chalk paint. This is a DIY chalk paint that I made out of a latex paint. It's called Mushroom, and I believe it's by Dulux. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a beautiful color, sort of a cross between a beige and a gray. I'm going to be cutting my strips of burlap about 2 inches wide. I probably could have gone a little narrower. And next time, if I do something like this, I probably will, simply because the burlap is a stiffer fabric and it started to kind of pucker a little bit once in a while. But that's okay. I had a solution for that too. I am sure you have seen people do this on YouTube and Instagram and all other places of social media, just gluing the fabric strips onto the pumpkin, one on the bottom side and then one on the top side in the hole. Just make sure that you use something else to press down the hot glue because the burlap is very see through, as I said, and it will burn your fingers. I'm not going to make you sit through me doing this whole thing. I think you get the idea. To bring out the different indentations that a pumpkin normally has, I'm taking some smaller satin ribbon here. I thought it was really pretty, and I'm just going to add 5 of them, and that will just create the illusion of having those dents in the pumpkin. For the stem of the pumpkin, I'm going to glue in a piece of a branch that I had in my stash from last year, and that just sets it off beautifully. To me, French country is all about a little bit of lace mixed in with rustic, with nature and greenery and florals. So I decided to create a messy bow for the top of this pumpkin. And I'm using just the colors that I have included in the pumpkin itself. So some cream, some whites, and some brown. I decided not to dovetail the ends, but I am going to angle them a little bit like the tails of a regular bow would be. I tend to put all of my bows off center, and I just seem to like it that way. I don't know why, but I think it gives it a little bit more of a visual uniqueness. So I am hot gluing this to the side of the pumpkin stem, and then I'm going to add a couple of solo wood flowers, and that's it for this pumpkin. To make sure that the wreath doesn't fall or get kittywampus, I'm going to add just a few dots of hot glue here and there to hold it in place. Now, hot glue comes off really easily from glass and ceramic, so I'm not concerned about leaving anything behind when I remove this for next season. I'm going to use the same wire to secure the pumpkin into the pool noodles. And what I'm going to do is take the length of wire and then just give it a little twist right in the center. I need something to prevent this wire from going right into the pumpkin completely or right into the pool noodle. So I'm going to give it a little twist and make a loop in the center of it, and then that will prevent the wire from sliding all the way through. Now, all I have to do is just give it a nice little push down into where I want it to sit for the urn. I did have to change my direction a little bit here, but that's just going to hold it in place really well. For a final accent, I'm going to push some Spanish moss in between the boxwood and the pumpkin just to hide the pool noodle and give it a little bit of a rustic feel. I am totally in love with this arrangement and I'm going to definitely display it in my home for the fall season. But I'm also really excited about what I can do with this for the Christmas season. If you have any ideas, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Last year, I painted this frame with this cute farmhouse pumpkins, 5 cents a pound. That was a stencil that I got from Beebee Craft. So what I'm going to do now is just give the whole thing a couple of coats of white chalk paint. And I'm going to do the frame too. This is just a frame that I created. I built it myself, but you could definitely just find a chunky frame at the thrift store too. Here's a quick tip for you when you're waiting for your paint to dry in between coats, but you don't want your brush to dry. I take some of these really inexpensive gloves from the dollar store and then just put the brush down in one of the fingers, and that keeps it nice and moist until I need it next time. I created this design for my sign using Canva, and I'll have this available as a digital download on my Etsy shop. I'll have the link down in my description box, and that'll take you right to this product. What I did is print it off on tissue paper, and if you haven't seen how I do that, I have a link for that also down in my description box. For this design, I decided to leave the sheets of paper square. I just thought it would fill up most of the sign the way it is, and then I wouldn't have too many rips and tears in it, and it would just maybe look a little cleaner. And I was right, it did turn out cleaner, but you can do whatever you want. You can cut your tissue paper down a little bit closer to your image, whatever works for you. I placed my pumpkin down where I want it to be, and I'm holding it with one hand and then applying Mod Podge to the sign underneath it. And then I'm just going to work like this in sections until I get it all finished. Lately, I've just been using my fingers to smooth it down, but one thing you have to be aware of is that if your fingers get in contact with the Mod Podge, you risk tearing the paper if you go with glue on your finger on top of your project. So that's why you see I switched my hands there. So just be aware of that. Once the Mod Podge was dry, I'm just taking some 80 grit sandpaper and really going to town on the edges of this sign to bring out some of that rustic brown and make it look aged and weathered. I love this sign, and this is definitely going to be a display piece for years to come. I decided to create a book stack for fall this year. I haven't done one in a couple of years. I know they were trending quite a while back, but what I'm going to do is take some cardstock paper and make new covers for all three of my paperbacks. Really easy to do, just cut out a strip and then use hot glue to glue it to the front and the back, create a new cover, kind of like we used to do in grade school. I folded over the little front piece so there'd be a nice little lip, but for the rest of the books, I was able to use a little bit more. I ended up not being so stingy with this part of it. But you can see it's really easy. Just use some hot glue and then just press it right over the book. I also added some glue to the spine to make sure that it would lay nice and flat. Then I simply folded it over again and created another fold to overlap the back cover of the book. I wanted the paper to look a little old and weathered, so I just took my little scissors and scored along the spine of the book just to reveal some of the white paper below. And I just think that gave it a little bit of a rustic feel. Now I'll just use some more hot glue to glue my books together. And I'm starting with the darkest color and then working my way to the lightest on the top. To decorate the book, I'm going to use some of the burlap that I used on the pumpkin and just glue it onto the back of the books, or the bottom of the books, I should say. Then I'm going to grab some of that satin ribbon that I also used for the pumpkin, and then I'll embellish it with a little bit of greenery, a cute little bow, and some tiny mini pumpkins that I think are absolutely adorable. This is such a quick and easy way to create some fall decor for your home. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to do all the things. Hit the like button, the notification bell, and the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you're looking for even more fall inspiration, check out my fall playlist. Bye for now.